Hello.
Hello. How are you?
I am in New York City.
Great. Are you at your home there? How long have you been home?
It's gonna be a month. It's hard to keep track, I think it's been a month.
And how many people in the apartment? Or is it a house? You have an apartment?
It's a house and four.
Four. Plus dogs?
No, 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 no. I rather have a marriage. Um, so many
Exactly.
children.
Too
um,
many.
I have a personal experience, if you don't mind, for me to share, which
Yes,
I
go
thought
ahead.
it was relevant. I have three children, and my daughters were monomeiotic twins. They're going to be 12 this June. So 12 years ago, I lived in a hospital because they were high risk pregnancy from week development 26 to June to week 26 to delivery date, which was week 34. So I lived in
Wow.
a hospital for 2 months and a half.
Wow.
So, and you couldn't move, you couldn't leave the hospital. I was monitored daily. Their chance of survival was 50%. And everybody asked me, how was that time in the hospital? Must been horrible. And I was so safe and so happy that I was in the hospital. But I also had a game ending. I knew the maximum my pregnancy was going to be was June 20th, right?
Right,
So
right,
from week 24, week 26 to week 34, which was delivery week, which was the goal to achieve there, I
right.
was like on the mode. Like I would work and the nurses would send faxes for me. Like my room was always beautiful. It smelled like I had those oil sticks that you turn them around, and then nurses would come into my room and there's like, this smells like Macy's. And they would be like, it was I was grateful to be there because I knew my children were safe. Like the alternative to
Right,
that was to be walking around and not knowing if your babies were alive. So that
right.
was a very scary thought. So I went through this process strong. And then they changed my delivery date because there were not enough incubators on June 20. So I delivered the next day, June 21st. I lost the plot. Like I
Completely
lost,
lost it.
I lost the plot, like to a level that I was like, because it was been so much preparation. So I think the mental distress that I can relate from my personal experience is we don't have a secure end game.
No.
And that is what is making us uneasy.
Yes. Like we thought in France, where I am,
Yeah.
that we were going to be fine as of tomorrow. We'd be out of this, and then they carried it on until May 11th, and then they said they're only going to reopen the schools May 11th,
Well, but that's
and the
that's not
rest of it
news.
we don't know. When,
Uh,
and will we be able to travel, and will we be able to go home, or because some people aren't even home, and it's just when you and we they just told us 2 days ago, so we thought we were at that delivery date, and it's like, no, another 4 weeks.
yeah, the delivery date. But it's an interesting time. A
So how
very
are you
different.
coping? What are you doing? Are you getting dressed every day? Are you staying
Oh
out in your
yeah.
pajamas?
No,
Oh
I,
yeah.
I, I am a believer of like I wouldn't be a fashion designer. The clothing changes your mentality, and
Hmm.
so this morning I woke up and I was like, oh my god, I want to spend the whole day in bed. I was like, okay, take a shower, spend 20 minutes,
What day is it? It's a day that ends with a Y.
and but it's been extremely busy because it's you have to work all digitally all the time. you
Yeah.
you miss the human um contact because I'm Latin. It's like it's counter culture for me to be like counter nature, to be like we're political animals. I need thank god I have a big family, but it's just like that affection is something that's important, but you find creative ways to do it. But I think that what I like about this, and I maybe this sounds maybe too straightforward, but I think I can share this with you and with whoever else that's watching, is that you know I feel this is a time where everybody just shows who they are
Yeah.
all the time. Because if you're playing the game, you more or less have to hold up a front, right? But the game is on pause. So
The
fronts are all
game is
down.
on pause.
So fronts are all down. So it's a good time to see who people really are and what they're made of. And so, in that sense,
So true.
it's really interesting time. It's really interesting.
Absolutely. So you're working. Are you working on the collection for the fall?
I'm working, fall was already done. So
I mean,
we're,
meaning your show for the fall. So it would be
yes, the spring 20. We're still
spring
working
20.
on Resort 21, which is the product that shows and gets ships this year as well. So it's a product that, and we've been working in this for a while because we've been trying to change our production to non-virgin materials. So because we create a product of really high quality, it
Yeah.
takes months for us to search for that stock of high quality because, also priced, they're not that much high quality available.
No.
So we gathered at least 60% of the production already for this resort collection. So we're finding creative ways, but the factories were also, we have one factory in the south that's actually functioning, but they were supposed to be opening this week, and now it's moved to next week. But
Where in the South?
near Naples, and then everything else that is in the north is just not. But they're working from home,
Right.
and so patterns and developments, that's continuing, and we're doing these 3D fittings that are
Interesting.
a little strange there, but they are actually, they do a function. So it's all about keeping the process going. The upside I see about this is because a part of the process, it has slowed down. It really gives you time to go into details, right? I have a very small team in design. In wovens, we're just four, and then I do shoes with one person, and handbags with one person, and knitwears with one person. So it's really small, but so usually we're like fast, and this time we have more time to look at even further than before. So and we're very detail oriented mentality anyway. So this is just like refining and refining. So there's upsides.
Great. Somebody asked already on the questions, do you think resort is an important season for your company? Is it really?
Yes, it is, because it's revenue that it's important for our company. It's a significant amount, and we already have a position on the materials because we bought it beforehand, and we still have all our employees that we haven't furloughed or anything.
That's great. That was one of the
So
things I was going to ask.
yeah,
Everyone's still.
yes,
How many employees do you have?
we're 40. We're 40.
Right, right.
And
And then when you say non-virgin materials for people who aren't fashion people, what do you mean by that?
meaning that it wasn't a material that was made for us exclusively. So for non-fashion people, usually the or fashion people that don't understand or know the way it works in the back of house, usually you buy fabrics for sampling, right? So you have your sampling order, you make your samplings, your samples, and then you take orders from your samples, right? They walk the runway, you do your lookbooks, and then you take orders on these samples.
Right.
And
And
so
that's what I explained in the beginning of my book.
yes, exactly. And so been making craftsmanship for centuries. I mean, they are the cradle of this beauty and this craftsmanship, and they have such pride. So the way I'm doing it is, because thank God our stuff is not that perishable. We're basically doing beautiful clothes with old materials,
Leftovers.
leftovers, grayish of a beautiful cashmere gauze, grayish of a silk, grayish. So it takes a lot of time to do this research, and then you have to bet on yourself, because opposite to what you explain on your book, here I'm buying the production. So there's two math exercises, right? That you can only produce, is a circular economy, you can only produce how much material you have, and then you have to design really well to make sure those products sell, because then you're stuck.
Right.
So you have to design, um, into it. So it puts more pressure on design, but then it will relieve on production. So you gain at least 10 to 12 weeks, and we can use those 10 to 12 weeks to shipping our production via boats.
Right, which
Because
is greener.
you should, exactly, which is the most green alternative you can do. So waste and lower the carbon footprint of the product, like, so
Right.
in a very drastic way. So that's what, I've been trying to exercise it. We've done pre-fall this way, but because the volume was not high enough, we can't. And our pre-fall is not. We are contrary than other fashion houses. Our pre-fall is only 25% of our fall collection, because
Wow.
pre-fall, yeah, it's the other way around. Because
Yeah.
pre-fall, I don't make one sample of pre-fall. Pre-fall is only sold to and we have only 75 points of wholesale distribution by design. We choose long-term partners, and so pre-fall is shown to our partners by sketches of our top sellers rethought in new fabrics. So we waste no sample, no development. It's
All
just
right.
really like, you trust us that we can make a good product. This is how we imagine it. So there's no wastage in sampling making. It's very concrete. And so in my thought is, if this is a commercial exercise, because at the beginning I didn't want to be caught up in doing so many seasons. So I already was caught up on doing resort, because we did resort from the start. So, and I didn't want to do pre-fall. So we started really small like this. I don't know how long we can sustain doing pre-fall like in this way, because the sales team hates me, because it's like it's really hard to sell from a paper and a swatch book,
I'm
but it also
sure.
but it also trained them for this current situation, because a lot of their calls and appointments were digitally. So in some way, there's been a dress rehearsal going on through doing our sampless collection. And but I think a business of other size, I don't know if they could do it, but because we have this design, self-imposed design on how we do our business, we can do it.
Yeah. Now let's talk about Fashion Week for a second, because one of the things that's happening is that Fashion Weeks are getting canceled. And you already were showing, you did a carbon neutral show. Now, what does that mean, doing a carbon neutral show?
So I'll go back to it. So we did, the history of how this happened was, we did the store in London with Norman Foster. And here we have, one of the best architects of the
Yeah.
century. And he seemed very keen and interested in doing this little store in London, because it was an exercise for him, and he's a pioneer in environmental architecture. He
Right.
wanted to showcase the fact that you can do a low carbon footprint store that's still beautiful and inspiring. And
Absolutely.
so when I was thinking of this, and because you are very conscious of the carbon footprint of everything, I said to myself, how much, what is the carbon footprint of shows? How do we find that out?
How do you find it out? Right.
So we partner with EcoAct, which is
Right.
the is the not is the organization that measure our carbon footprint. And and the reason I wanted to do it is because I always relate things to things that I can understand, right? Maybe because I'm a country girl and we're just like, like to simplify things. But
Super fun.
it's like, when I had high cholesterol, right? I didn't know I had cholesterol. I got my cholesterol measured. It was really high. The doctor said, it's not your nutrition, it's probably your exercise, because you eat fairly healthy. So I started to exercise and my cholesterol dropped 3 4 months later. And so, how you can't lower something if you don't know the number. So
Right.
it was about starting to gather this data. Working with EcoAct, they showed us the system of carbon neutrality, of how we can offset it, which it is not the point. Is like the gratuity you put in a tip. It's good that you did it, but it's not like, it's going to solve all the problems here. But
No.
it's a positive thing to do. And we happened to be the first, but that was because it was the only thing that I was interested in doing. It was like, what was the creative when we talked with our show producer Batak, I was like, what was that creative direction? I was like, I just want to measure the carbon footprint. I don't care about anything else. I know we can make beautiful things. That's the taste level, and that's what we do. But we need to know this data, and it's a huge learning experience.
Cool. Now, how will you adapt this to, say that Fashion Week gets canceled in September? What would you do? Are you already thinking about different ways to show collections, or there's no resort collection show?
I think we're going to showcase somehow. It's the same thing. This came very, very quickly, like a
Yes.
tsunami, right? And it's gonna, as when something changes too quickly, I'm always a bit skeptical because things take time. So if it changed too quickly, it will go back to this similar situation. Maybe it has a new name. We opened a store in the middle of the retail apocalypse in New York, and everybody's like, don't call it a store. Don't,
Right.
I'm like, it's a store. So I don't know. It's gonna be a presentation. It's gonna be a different experience for us. Making a show that it's mindfully done. We've never done big shows. We've never been wasteful in that type of environment. We try to put all our resources more to the product than anything else. So we've always been very mindful, and our shows were 150 people. This past season was the biggest one because people started to get a little annoyed to us, and so we open a bit more, but we prefer it to be in a small situation. And I think still doing this sort of presentation helps because it helps us to produce content that we use for our e-commerce. The viewership increases. We can quantify the results of this investment, and it's one of
Right.
our few investments. So I don't know about the timing exactly because it's not in our control. The timing is not in our control.
Do you think it's still right for editors and retailers to be flying all over the place, New York, London, Paris, Milan? Or should it be centralized more, like maybe just in Paris and everybody congregates in Paris and then there's a bit more green, like people walk to
I
shows
don't
or people
know.
take electric buses to shows
Yeah.
instead of their individual cars? And is there a
I
way to make it more, less of a sprawl that goes on and on and on? And is it too often?
okay. So I think when I was young, and I dreamed of shows, there was only two shows a year. That's it. I
Right.
think with just to give that thought that I always take. I think in the subject of energy, right? We need to think of the future, right? We need to think of moving ourselves from fossil fuel and our dependency on fossil fuel and going to renewables and safe nuclear. We need to be in the future when it comes to energy. But when it comes to fashion and garment making, we have to look to the past. There
I think
was a
so too.
way there was a way we used to do things the right way. And
Yeah.
I grew up in this environment where we had very few things, but they were very good. Basically, my mom made
Beautiful.
the clothes with her seamstress. They didn't have a lot, and it was beautiful. Still, I every time she finds a piece from Tota, which was a family seamstress, I'm like, it's like a treasure because it's really an
Right.
couture piece. So in that way, but going back to the specific question of the show, should
Should we move towards streaming them more or make them?
obviously the flight is a no-brainer. There's a carbon footprint, definitely demark on flying as much. Is it about reducing the teams that were flying? But those teams were already reduced because from the editorial perspective, everybody was working with
Cutting, cutting,
reduced,
cutting.
yeah, with reduced cost. So that was happening already. So I think yes, it's for sure for more of a local base, but everyone showing in Paris, I don't know, because then there's not enough attention for
I mean,
everyone.
that's how it was in the old days.
Yes, yes, it's
Milan
true.
Fashion Week's only been around since the 70s,
Yeah, I'm such a
and
New
London
York
probably
girl
since the
that
70s, and New York
yes,
since the
it's true.
70s. So
Yeah,
it was Paris. And when I first got involved in Paris, in fashion, the
yeah,
fashion shows were all in tents in the Cour Carré, and everybody just
yeah,
kept showing in the tents. And it wasn't this big thing that you built.
yeah, yeah.
And And you just went from 10 to 10 to 10 to 10. My first boss, Nina Hyde at the Washington Post, would stay at the Regina Hotel across the street from the Louvre, walk over every morning, spend the day going to shows in the tents, and then go back to the Regina for cocktails and then go out to dinner.
Yeah,
It was
glorified
much,
trade
it
show.
was, and it was a much greener, a much greener way of covering things.
Well, that's definitely a good example. But then that means that there has to be an editing process, and who gets to edit that process? And how does the
Right.
editing happen? No.
Right. I don't know. I don't know. Do you think that this will slow this pause that we're having will slow fashion down across the board? Do you think some companies will just pick up and keep racing like they were? Or do you
I think
think
it.
people are really going to rethink
Yeah.
how they run their companies?
So I have different thoughts on them, and some of them are semi opposed. But I mean, and thoughts by thought meaning gut processing. No. I for one part, I've been paying close attention to how Asia has responded to the crisis, and so I have, because I've been wanting to have a physical spot in Asia for a while, and then it was the first was Hong Kong, there was protest, then when I was like, okay, it's Beijing, then it's the coronavirus, so I've been looking at this was part of the strategy for a long time, and so I've been paying close attention with the different contacts I have there, and I've seen their reaction of how consumption is coming back, and there's the revenge shopping. So I don't know. I don't know how human behavior reacts to that part. If it's going to come out like, ravishing, or we're going to come out cheapest. What I do really feel from my perspective, that somebody that doesn't overbuy, that thinks very carefully on what we shop and how we shop, even if from, deodorant to shampoo to all basics. I feel that if people cared more how things were made, they're going to care even more now.
I
That's
think
for sure.
so.
That's
I
for
think so
sure.
too. And
And
they'll take more interest, I think, too.
yes,
The people
that,
who don't know will take more interest.
and I think there's going to be a lot of editing, because if everybody was overbuying, not just
Completely. Over everything. We
over
were
everything,
hustling in every way. We were over
everything,
traveling and over buying and
everything was going so
overworking.
fast.
The
Yeah.
only thing we weren't doing enough of was staying with our families and sleeping, which we're doing very well now.
Yes. 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 It's true.
We're
Um,
making up.
yes, that's true. But I think that the company, so because of this fictional inflation, let's say it, right? Inflated, not inflation, inflated consumption, the companies that were not in a true standing, that were based on marketing and not real sales, I think those are not, if the product wasn't there, it's not going to be
Yeah.
there. Because people, if they're going to go for quality and craftsmanship and things well made, and have few things but well made, if that's the case. But I don't think that if you were not in a good position before this started, this is going to crumble you.
I think so too.
So
And I
that's,
think also if the business was already in a bad place and they were talking about turnaround plans,
yeah.
no.
Yeah, I don't think it's a good time, but also it's a good time to reinvent yourself. If your business wasn't
It's
doing good,
absolutely a great time to
it's like,
reinvent
okay,
yourself.
let's rethink, how we're gonna do things. Our shifts changed really quickly. When I realized we have a controlled growth, we set a controlled growth every year. That
That's good.
in order to give our business and develop ourselves, and keep on our mission, and business evolve.
Evolve in a more mature way rather than
Yeah.
just growing up, 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 up. You work on core.
Yeah, I believe that long, and I've had,
Sort of like tackling a workout. You got to work
yeah,
on the core.
100%. It is like this, but
It is like this.
we had the opportunity to double the size of our business when the demand for our handbags started, because everybody wanted them. We decided not to wholesale them, because we have two values, which is long-term view and sustainability. And so we had that opportunity to be a double the size business, and that meant taking double, for wholesaling your bags meant taking double the amount of natural resources, right, which is not
Right.
fits with our sustainable to make similar amount of profit. So that didn't make sense to take that double amount of natural resources. And the only reason you would do it is for your brand to become very fast, very well known, but it doesn't go with our long-term view. So
No.
I am so happy we took this decision. Sometimes, you know, like when you have opportunities like this, you don't know if like you missed the boat, but I'm so happy now that we have 40 employees and not 80. And anything
Right.
that goes up really fast goes down really fast. So I
Yes.
really think that just, you know, I come from a family business that we've been doing the same thing for 6 generation, and nothing more circular than having a farm or a ranch, because you can have the amount of animals that you that land can your production is always limited to the amount of land that you have. So
Right.
that is if you do the things the right way, right, with care for the
Absolutely.
animals. So
Do
that
you
is,
have so
yes,
do you
sorry.
have any advice to young entrepreneurs, especially those who might be sort of struggling because they did a startup business and now they're in this tricky place?
I think that in a way there's a lot of assistance in the US. I'm not sure what's in the other
Mm.
parts, to smaller businesses. So they need to really research that and take it.
Take advantage of it.
Yeah, there's women's led. There's enough, but also because I was talking to a young designer, very very smart girl, that a lady that, you know, she has a family, she has her business, she's but it's an advantage point to be lean this time. It's advantage to be lean and nimble. It's really the advantage. There's an advantage here.
Yeah.
And you have to put your goal. This is a crisis, and I don't know if because I'm South American and we are so, and anyone that lives in a third world country knows that there's always crises. There's always a
There's always
political.
a
There's
crisis.
always a crisis. So we're used to the survivor mode in a way, and things are sometimes so out of your reach or control with one of those situations. So you have to be nimble, and being nimble means being light. So this is a great opportunity. You think you're in this stress situation, but you don't want to be the CEO of a huge company right now.
No.
So
No. No.
no. So I think that if there's opportunities there for those who are, you know, are doing the things the right way. I really do. I really do believe
I do
that.
too.
Yeah.
I do too. Well, this is great. Thank you so very much for doing this with us.
No, my pleasure. It's
It's
always a
been
pleasure talking
wonderful.
to you. I hope
Oh,
to see
and
you
I
again soon.
we'll see each other somehow, somewhere, if even it's virtually like this. See, we can do this, so it's good.
I still like physical contact.
Well, at some point, I will get back to the mother country, the home country,
Yes, we're
the
waiting for
homeland,
you.
the land of the brave.
Yes.
And until then, take care,
Yes.
and I'll see you
Mwah.
soon.
Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.